but what if you looked at it through the lens of God having a sense of humor? Right? Or what about you look at it through his passion or his zeal or, his humanity? Because sometimes we forget Jesus has a personality.
Yeah.
He was a human.
Yeah.
Right? So he has a personality. And I think it would really help us in our relationship with God, because if you don't think he has a sense of humor, how are you going to relate to him? Welcome back to the podcast. We are so glad that you're joining us today. And in this week's episode, we want to talk about some practical ways that you can actually boost your mood. And I know that might sound a little maybe superficial, but honestly, I know for me, I've had a lot of days where, there might be some underlying things that I need to work on or that God is trying to deal with me on. But sometimes I just get in a crappy mood.
Yeah.
And it just happens. And sometimes there's reasons for it and sometimes there's not. But sometimes you just need to figure out ways to just kind of get out of that bad mood, because when you're in a bad mood, it affects everything that you think, that you do, how you behave, how you treat people, how the rest of your day goes. And it can just lead to so much frustration. And so finding ways to kind of deal with that, I think, can be super helpful.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times we connect mood and stuff to just being spiritual, right? It's like our emotions are only a spiritual thing and we deal with them in a spiritual way. And that's true partly, but I do think that there's a lot of physical things that we can do that can either make us have a better mood or a worse mood, if you're isolated and stuff like that, that's going to change your mood, and it's not just something spiritual. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think there's also a way of kind of finding out what works for you.
Yeah.
I know sometimes other people say things and it does not work for me, right? It just doesn't do it for me. But then I've had to experiment and find things that actually bring me joy, actually bring me rest, help slow down my mind, whatever it is I'm needing in that moment. And also having a variety of things, because sometimes it might be, like you said, you're isolated and so you need to get out. Other times it might be that you're doing too much and you need to slow down and be alone. So kind of figuring out what's maybe causing some of this stress or this mood, and then identifying some of the ways that can actually help with that specific situation.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the first one that I want to mention is one of my personal favorites, and for me it tends to be my go-to for anytime I'm just not feeling well.
I think I know what it is.
Exercise?
Yeah.
Is that one of yours?
No, it's not.
Okay.
But okay. I almost knew you were going to talk about it. I was like, all right, give her the reins.
Just give it to her. She needs it. But yeah, exercise, honestly, and it doesn't matter what exercise, just as long as you're moving your body, exerting yourself. But I can't tell you how many times Jeff or I, or both of us, have been in a bad mood. And that person will just go okay, I don't want to do my workout, but I'm going to go do a workout, right?
Yeah.
And you do it. And afterwards, it's man, I don't know what I was so stressed out about. I feel so much better, and it's just amazing how much it helps. Stress with work, stress at home, just feeling overwhelmed, feeling frustrated about people or situations. So many times just going and doing a workout will really, really help that. And I think there's a lot of reasons for it. Obviously, you know, you release endorphins. Endorphins make you happy, but
that was like Elle Woods. You remember in court?
Happy people, what was it? When you exercise, you release endorphins. Endorphins make you happy. Happy people just don't shoot their husbands.
Yeah, that's what
they
it
just
is.
don't. Great movie.
It is.
And wonderful logic. It's true.
It's true. Yeah.
I guarantee you the people who do that aren't exercising a lot. But yeah, there's just something about it too, about kind of taking care of yourself. Mm-hmm. So something for me too is if I'm already in a bad mood and I don't work out, then it kind of just makes it worse, because now not only am I in a bad mood, but now I'm neglecting my health, right?
And now I feel bad because I didn't exercise.
And guilty and all this stuff. And so it really just, honestly, if I'm in a bad mood or I'm not feeling the greatest, that's usually my go-to of let me just get a workout in and then see how I feel.
Exactly. And for my job, like I am always sitting at my desk. You know, I don't get a lot of exercise while I'm working, which takes up most of my weekdays.
You should replace your chair with like the exercise ball, like Dwight.
Yeah. There are so many women who actually stand at work and they work and they stand. And I mean, I want to do it, but I don't because I've tried it.
But is that really good for your health? Because like I understand like you're not sitting, but you're not walking.
Yeah, but I think it's just better. Maybe
I don't know.
It's better to a certain extent.
It hurts. I used to work in retail and restaurants, and I had to stand on my feet all day, and it's so painful. So I don't know.
Like that's the thing is if you have a job like a hostess or a server, like I've never been a server, but my sister was, and you worked at. You have a name for it, B-Dubs?
BJ's Brewhouse?
I don't know, but you were, you had
BJ's
that kind of work
Texas
at some
Roadhouse.
point. And when you're a server, you are walking around all the time. Mm-hmm. But like when you're just sitting at your desk all day, your body just needs movement, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I have been that way where I get home and I'm tired mentally, but my body, I can tell it's like we need to move, we need to do something because like we have so much that energy that builds up in our body. And so it really just makes a huge difference to just move. Like I've noticed, like you said, when I just start moving, if my mind's going, I exhaust my body in, just some sort of cardio or something. And then my thoughts feel more, reasonable. I guess.
Reasonable.
Yeah.
No, it's true. I mean, you think about, back in the day, if you want to think about Jesus's day or just even, just history, people had to walk a lot more, right?
Exactly.
Like people typically lived more active lives, even if they were wealthy. It was just like you walked everywhere or, it was just more a part of people's lives. And I think that's kind of how we were meant to live. So yeah, like you said, like your body is like craving this. And so kind of giving yourself that exertion, especially if you have a job like us where you're sitting all day and you're not getting a lot of physical movement.
Exactly.
That can really make a difference.
Mine is, so I want to preface this one because this might sound like it's coming from somebody who is extroverted, but as we've talked about on the podcast, I am not very extroverted.
Felicia is the most outgoing extrovert I know.
And so this topic, which is being able to interact with people more, see people more, like your friends and your family and stuff, that can have such an impact on my mood. Like I can get very isolated, and if I'm not seeing people throughout the week or through the weekends, like sometimes I tend to do that because I'm like, oh, let me just sit in my house and get stuff done. But if I get into that mode, I can notice that sometimes my thoughts become like, I start to overthink about things and I'm like, really, it's just me and my mind unless I'm bringing the Holy Spirit into it. And so it's just like me and my opinions, and it can get really weird. It's like, and then I'll go and hang out with people, and it just feels like stuff is more reasonable, their views, their opinions, and the way that they, like, people uplift each other is such a big deal. We are social creatures, we're made in God's image. And if we think about it, God himself is even like a 3-part person, or not person, but being like God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit. He's a Trinity, right? And like God didn't need to create us. He was doing just fine, just being God,
He was doing just fine.
He was doing just fine. It's kind of weird to think about because I started thinking about this, and then I started thinking about God before people. And I was like, whoa, because it's
like
eternity.
Beyond our mind's ability to
my mind was like, ow.
fully understand. Your mind was ow.
But, like he created us.
Yeah.
He's a social being too. Like he wanted children. He wanted to share experiences with us. And we're made in his image, right? Like we need human interaction. It says in 1 Thessalonians 5:11, therefore encourage one another and build each other up, just as in fact you are doing. And that what stood out to me there was build each other up. When we see each other, and if it's just a fun thing, like not even in a church setting or in a Bible study setting, but just hanging out with friends and hanging out with family, that builds us up, And I saw a quote and it says, Regular interactions with other people can reduce anxiety, depression, and stress. It can help to improve self-confidence and self-esteem, which can be beneficial in both personal and professional situations. And so, yeah, it's just huge. And it makes me think of people in like prison who are isolated. And I've heard of like just having isolation, or for people who used to like be in mental institutions. In my mind, I'm like, that makes it so much worse, right? Like you're not seeing people and you don't have other people's opinions and encouragement and stuff throughout the day. So anyway, it's huge.
Yeah. I mean, it's what isolation, like when they go into like what's it called? Like confinement or
yes, that sounds like one of the words.
I can't think of it right now, my goodness, but it's that punishment you get in prison when you're in isolation, whatever, you're alone,
like in Parent Trap, maybe. When they isolated
Parent Trap.
Remember when they isolated them because they got in trouble?
That's a Disney-fied version of what I'm saying. I'm talking about
that works,
serial
right?
killers and things like that.
Yes.
But yes, very similar. So that turned out great. But there's a reason why this is a punishment in prisons, right? Like literally, prison is a punishment, but there's a punishment prison. Isolated confinement. I cannot think of it right now.
That sounds right.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So there's a reason why that is basically a punishment, is all I'm saying, is that as humans, people can go crazy.
People can literally go crazy. Exactly. Like they lose their minds because they're not seeing other people.
Exactly.
It's huge.
And I mean, I'm an introvert as well. And so I think sometimes the thought process is like, oh, I don't like need to be around people.
Yeah.
But that's absolutely not true. You know, I need to be around people. And I like what you said. That's such a good point. It happens to me a lot. Sometimes when you are alone or you're not around your friends a lot and you don't see a lot of people, it's easy to get what the Bible calls speculative imagination.
Yeah.
So like what you were saying, overthinking things. And it's easy to start thinking like, oh, this person doesn't really like me, or, oh, they're starting to do this and that. And it's easy to create speculative imaginations. You're imagining something about someone or the future that's not good. And when you see the person or you get out and you see people, you're like, no, that's fine. No,
exactly.
And it just brings everything back down to a normal level. And it's so important. That's why the enemy wants to get people isolated. I mean, the suicide rate right now is so high. And so much of it is because of everyone being so isolated. Yeah. And I think that that's just something that the enemy wants to do, because he knows there's power and there's love and there's encouragement and there's growth when you're around people who care about you, who love you. It doesn't mean that every relationship is perfect or that every friendship is perfect, but just having human interaction, right? Like having people in your life that you see, even people that aren't exactly like you, maybe you're not very close to, but that can just bring so much clarity to your mind and just help you. I know for me, I do overthink things sometimes.
Me
then
too.
I get out around people and I'm like, oh, yeah, never mind.
Yeah, and like also making sure that we're not replacing interacting with people with social media. Like I like to text. I'm a texter, because I feel more comfortable. I feel more comfortable texting.
I like call Felicia and she doesn't answer, and then she'll text me back.
That has never happened. But I can see that happening. I can see it happening. And so it's easy again for me to be like, okay, this counts. It's like, no, there's a huge difference between actually being face to face with somebody and having a conversation and being encouraged in person. So that's kind of a challenge for me and for everyone else who kind of leans in that direction, knowing that it really is important to see your friends, talk to your family, all that stuff.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so the next way that you can maybe boost your mood if you're feeling down is kind of the opposite of what you just said. But that's, if you're being maybe more isolated. But let's say you're kind of just firing on all cylinders and you're really stressed out. One thing that I think is super important to do that are like a lot of people just don't do right now because they're so busy is relaxing. And that sounds really simple, but I think what the secret is you need to find the ways in which you relax. A lot of people will say that they enjoy certain things that I just don't enjoy. Some people love painting. Oh my gosh, it is so stressful to me.
Really?
I like it, but I have to be good at it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm such a perfectionist when it comes to this. For my bachelorette, we did painting with a twist.
I remember that.
And I was like, this better be good, like I was so intense with it.
Yeah, so Ryan and I painted each other the other day.
Oh my gosh.
And not like...
Can we see those images, please?
Wait, I'll put them up on the screen, actually.
Okay, good.
We painted each other, and I got so intense with it. I was like, can you stop moving? Like, can you put your face in this angle? Because now your face is like a different shape. So I understand
His face is a different shape.
He would like look directly, and then he'd look, and then he'd look. And I'm like, no, you have to keep your face in the same spot.
Yeah, that's
anyway,
true.
I totally get it.
He's going to be a model, but yeah, well, that's good. I'm glad that was a marriage building exercise.
It really was.
But yeah, like I like painting, and that's actually something that I'm going to talk about later at another point. So that's something different.
Oh.
But what I'm talking about right now is strictly relaxation. And you need to find out what relaxes you. For some people, it is painting, and that's fantastic. For some people, it's writing. For some people, it's, reading. For me, reading is extremely relaxing. However,
bubble baths,
yes, same. Bubble baths,
relaxing.
Bubble baths while reading.
Oh,
now that's
a whole nother
magic
level.
ingredient.
Yeah,
right
that's
there.
magic.
That is pure magic. But what I've also noticed is what I read. So I don't read self-help books to relax.
It's so true.
Now my husband loves doing that. I don't know why, but he does. Now, I like self-help books, like Christian nonfiction and things like that, business books, leadership books, things like that. I enjoy them.
Yeah.
But they're effort to me. I'm improving myself. It's homework, right? Whereas for me, I need to read fiction to relax. We're strictly talking about relaxing. And so for me, one of my favorite things is sitting in my massage chair reading one of my fiction books. And I also have found genres that I like and genres that I don't like. And so I think, again, just kind of find out what actually relaxes you. It needs to slow your mind down to where you're not stressing about everything. And then it also needs to engage your mind, because that's the key for me, is it has to engage my mind enough to where I'm not thinking about everything else, but it's not a strain for me to do what I'm doing. And
exactly.
It's just, I feel my muscles relaxing and, my heart rate maybe slowing. And those things are really important, because so many of us live a life of just going from one task to the next, trying to get it all done all day long. And, there's nothing wrong with the hustle, especially if that's the season of life you're in. But if that's the case, you have to give yourself time in the day, in the week, to really relax and slow down and just be at peace. And if you're not doing that, you can actually give yourself a lot of problems with anxiety and things like that.
Yeah, and I think I've mentioned this before, but so we were just saying bubble baths are amazing. Bubble baths with reading, right? And so I've told people how much I like doing that, and they'll be like, well, I got in a bath the other day, and I just was thinking about all the stuff I could be doing. And it's true. I've tried to do it before where I'm taking a bath and I'm making a list of stuff I need to do. And it was such a different experience. And so it really is about, what am I doing? Am I letting myself stop and think about, a lot of the stuff I read too, it's just fiction.
Right.
And so your mind is not thinking about the here and now. It's somewhere else, right? And I think another reason why it's so relaxing for me is because I don't feel like I need to be moving around and doing something else because I'm in one spot. And it's kind of
this is where
I'm stuck in the tub. This is where I'm supposed to be right now. And so it's just kind of that white space, I guess, in your life that you need. So another way that I feel like we can really improve our own moods is kindness we show other people. And I know that this might be taken in oh my goodness, it sounds really spiritual or whatnot.
Felicia is extremely spiritual.
I can't help it. But it says in Proverbs 11:25, a generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. And it is so true that I have been so in my own head, like I've mentioned before, I can really get in my head and be thinking about the stuff I need to do and the mood that I'm in and all this stuff. And then I just go and help somebody do something small. It doesn't even have to be a big thing. And it just it makes me feel better. And that's not the reason we should do it, right? But it does have that impact on us. And while I was thinking about this topic, I don't know how many of you all watch Friends, but it made me think of that episode where Phoebe was talking about how she does nice things for other people. And they were like, oh, well, that's still, that's still not completely selfless because it makes you feel better. And so the whole episode was her trying to figure out a way where she can do a selfless act that doesn't make her feel better. And then she discovered she couldn't because everything, it affected her. But that is kind of proves Phoebe. The point. She's my favorite.
Yeah, she's great.
But yeah, that just kind of shows that really, like, when we do acts for other people, it has such an impact on us. And so obviously, like, God created us that way because he calls us to live that life, and like care for other people. But I also found that I looked up, how kindness and how generosity affects us. And it does say that, like, kindness boosts serotonin and dopamine, and it reduces stress and blood pressure. And I really just think like that the act of us taking our minds off of what is going on with us and just focusing on someone else is huge. And it makes me think of too, like with it's more blessed to give than to receive, that verse as well. And I'll be the first to say I love, like, when my birthday comes around, I like receiving gifts, like, obviously, you know. I can't be the one to be like, I like just giving. But have you ever been in that situation where you have this thing or you have a surprise or a gift for somebody and you're so excited to give it to them and it's like you can't even wait, and it's like that kind of thing where it, like, when you think about other people and you do something for other people, it can have such a positive effect on yourself.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's the way we were designed to live. That's what Jesus taught us. And so if he taught us that, then I think it goes to show that we were probably created in ways that were meant to demonstrate that. And so when we act in that way and we are generous and we help other people, it makes sense that it actually boosts our mood and actually helps and gives us life, because that's how we were created. Yeah.
And I thought about it too. If you've ever noticed, like, people talking about what they feel like their purpose is or what their calling is, maybe it's like, I want to be a musician because I want to speak to people through music, or I want to be in this medical field because I want to heal people. Every single thing that people feel, I almost said Phoebe, every single thing that people feel called to, if you really listen, it's about helping someone else. It's about, like, healing, bringing healing to someone else in some way or another. And I think that's really not, that's exactly how God designed us.
It's true. They say, like, to find your purpose, you need to find the sweet spot between three things. And that's what you have a strong desire to do, what you're anointed to do, which is very specific, and then also where you can, like, fill a need in the world. And so I find that really interesting because it's that combination of all three that really shows what you might be called to in this life. And, to really live a life of purpose, what you're doing, you need to feel like it's contributing to the world somehow, or to people somehow, like, because that's just how we were created. All right, so the next tip I have for boosting your mood is what I was referring to earlier with the painting. That is, try something new. And this one's a little bit more of a long-term thing. This probably isn't more of an instant mood booster, but I do think sometimes we can get so locked in to our lives, our schedules, our comfort zone, right? And there's nothing wrong with kind of, like, knowing what you're good at and kind of having routines and things that you love. And I think that's good. But we were meant to be growing, right? We're meant to be learning and growing as people. And so I think sometimes we can get maybe even a little depressed or just complacent if we're not growing and we're not learning new things. And so I think it can be good to kind of get out of a rut by signing up for a class or trying a new hobby or learning a new language. Like, have something that you're doing that you're kind of, like, growing in, and you have goals, and it's kind of pushing you a little bit outside your comfort zone. I am not saying that you should do something that you absolutely hate, because like, there's that, like, whole, like, thing with, like, oh, if you're an introvert and you don't like talking in front of people, go do an improv class. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
That sounds like an absolute nightmare.
It sounds like torture. It sounds like torture to me. And yet there's other people who that's, just everything that they would ever love.
Yeah.
But for me, that's a bit like, I have no desire to do that. I don't care. I do not care. But, maybe taking a painting class, because I enjoy it, but I'm too strict with it. So maybe learning some stuff, or I personally love languages. So sometimes I like using like one of my apps on my phone and like kind of trying to learn more in a language that I really like and stuff like that, or maybe there's some kind of new like a fitness class that you can take with other people, so you're getting your exercise, you're getting your social interactions, and you're trying something new. So that's probably a really good one to try, but something that can just be added to your daily life or weekly life that can kind of push you just a little bit outside your comfort zone. And I think overall you're going to have a feeling of satisfaction of, I'm really like trying something and I'm going for something and I'm not just staying complacent in my life.
Yeah, and you just mentioned satisfaction, and I feel like a lot of the reason sometimes we get anxious or fearful or insecure is because we feel like we don't have a lot to contribute, or we feel like we're not good at stuff, right? Like a lot of times that's contributed to my anxiety. I'm like, well, I couldn't do that. I'm not good at it. And so when you do something and you try it and you realize that you do have a gift in an area that you didn't think you did, or you know, you're just able to do it and overcome it, that can like boost self-esteem. And I feel like when your self-esteem is higher, it keeps your anxiety and your your insecurities lower, because then you realize, if I can do this, like maybe I could do a lot of other things that I feel like I can't, or I've been told I can't.
Yeah. No, I think it's really important for kids to be kind of trying new things and stuff like that. But sometimes as adults, we forget that we should be doing that as well. But yeah, I mean, I remember growing up, like I tried all kinds of things, you know, my parents, I did drama, you know, and that was interesting.
You did?
I did. I know you did, but I did. Yeah, I did too. But the thing about that is I was like a cheerleader. I always did like gymnastics. So I was really only put in the shows because they wanted me to do flips across stage. So that was my drama career, right? So, you know,
that's a lot of the time the most exciting part in a lot of shows. Where it's like,
it was very exciting, except when you hear me like thud, thud, thud.
It just has to be totally silent, and all you hear is you.
The key to that is when you're wearing slippery jazz shoes is we would hairspray the bottom of the jazz shoes really quick before, and then be able to tumble.
Nice.
But yeah,
I wonder if Circus Olay does that.
Probably. I'm sure there's a lot of hairspray in a lot of places in those shows.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying. But anyway, so you know, that was something I did. But then I also remember like several things I did. I did track one year, track and field, and I actually found out I was really good at high jump, which is funny because I'm not tall. But I was really good at the high jump.
I could see you being a good jumper.
Thank you. I'm an excellent jumper. I don't know why. You know what? I think it's the gymnastics.
Exactly.
Because when you run and tumble, you have to rebound. You have to jump really high to do a back tuck, and that's basically what you do to go over the bar. But then I also did hurdles. And I would be the last girl coming down the hurdles. Because I was so scared of. I saw girls wipe out on hurdles.
Oh, that's scary. I have too.
I mean, I was kind of good at it because I was short, but I was too scared, you know. And then I did basketball one year.
I did basketball too.
You did basketball too?
Oh my God, my dad put me in like every single sport, and I like not all the instruments. I guess I was in piano, but I was basketball, soccer, ice skating, swimming. There's probably a few others. I always wanted
to do ice skating.
It was fun
because of the movie Ice Princess, obviously.
Exactly.
But, you know, here's the thing. Like, I did soccer and basketball, right? Those were not good for me. And me and my mom learned that I am not aggressive in those sports,
me neither.
Right? But then I did cheerleading. And I was very aggressive. And I was very good. And I loved it. And so you gotta just get out there and try stuff. And, like, if you didn't do it as a kid, it's not too late now. You know, you just have to. We were listening to a podcast, and I can't remember who it was, but there's this guy who was saying he's very successful. And he was saying that one of the keys he thinks to success is, to this day, and he's probably middle-aged or higher, he still tries to do something new. Like, put himself outside his comfort zone and learn something.
Yeah.
And I think that that's just so important. And if you're not doing that, you can have this, like, feeling that you're not really progressing, you know, and you're not growing as a person. Yeah. And so I think, you know, again, it's more of a long-term kind of one, but think about something that you would like to do, not something you'd hate, something you'd like to do that maybe you're not good at or you just don't have a lot of experience in, and then find out if you can take a class or join a group or do something or just practice on your own. And I think it'll actually bring a lot of joy to your life and also a lot of like a pathway for growth, something you can reach towards.
Yeah, it makes me think of the half marathon that you all convinced us to do, me and Brian. I had never ran. I think, was I on a track team? I don't know. Maybe I was very temporarily, but it was years before. I don't know. Anyway.
How many, Felicia?
Anyway, I'm not a runner, and when they asked me, I think obviously the experience of doing something with friends, but then the fact that it was in Disney.
It was a Disney half
I think
marathon.
That's what got me to do it. Yeah. I would not have ever wanted
knew what
to
we
run.
Were doing.
Yeah. They knew what the little secret sauce was. I ended up loving that experience so much. I feel like, again, it brought me confidence because I overcame something that I was afraid of. And then you're like, what else can I overcome that I'm afraid of, right? Yeah. Like, it just gives you that excitement. And it was an amazing experience. So sometimes you have to try stuff to discover what you love to do, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows?
Who knows?
And then you don't have to go through life like being afraid and timid of like, oh, I'm not good at that. I could never do that. Instead, find out, you know what? There are things that I'm not good at. And I'm okay with that because I've learned I'm not good. Like, that's not really my lane. I'm not good at it or I don't enjoy it. Right.
Yeah.
But you don't want to go through life being so timid that you always disqualify yourself from ever finding out. That's the difference. But
yeah.
Now Felicia runs half marathons without me. So
one. That happened one time.
It was brutal.
Okay, so another one that is so big for me is being out in nature. Did you talk about that one?
No.
Okay, because I know that you love that too. And I honestly, every person I talk to every person I talk to has told me that being out in nature is so relaxing for them. And I saw from an article I was reading, nature can help reduce anxiety, promote creativity, and contribute to heart health. It's kind of funny because a lot of this stuff like helps our heart.
Yeah.
But like when I'm out in nature, I feel like my mind slows down, and it's just because it's not so, I don't know, there's not so much loudness around you. It's just like you and the sounds of nature. I feel like it's just so healing. And I was wondering, like, what is it about being just right outside versus inside that makes a big difference? And it's kind of like, you think about it, God created nature. Like his fingerprint is in nature, and like man created homes and stuff, So it's like when we're in nature, we're kind of more in God's creation directly rather than when we're inside a building of some sort. And it said just 2 hours a week has a huge benefit. And like, that's literally only 20 minutes a day. So for me, I work inside, I work in a cubicle for most of the day, so I don't have a lot of chance to get outside. But if that sounds like, the way that your week looks, just taking a lunch outside or like going outside for 20 minutes or taking a walk for 20 minutes has a huge benefit on our body and the way we respond to stress and everything like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, like I think a huge thing is like being in my garden. I've been dealing with stress in the past, and then I would go outside and just start planting something or doing something just like pulling weeds that wouldn't sound really fun, but just being out in nature, hearing birds and all that stuff. And it's like funny because Brian and I have a sleep machine at night where it's like the thunder sounds.
Yes, so do we.
Yeah, and I know you guys have turned it on like at a hotel when we stayed with you guys before. You guys have turned on your thunder.
On a phone.
And I'm like, yes.
Go to Spotify. You can find a 10-hour version of thunderstorms.
Yeah, we do as much as we can to bring like the sounds of nature and the things of nature inside,
That's true.
Like you think about the amount of plants that people have in their house. It's like, you just look around, it's like people just trying to bring nature more into their day-to-day.
It's so true. And again, that's how we used to live, there wasn't artificial light and things like that. And so just getting the oxygen to your brain and natural light and things into your eyes, huge. It really just makes a really big difference. Okay, so my next point is, I'm going to kind of combine this, but it's basically, watch something. And I do have specifics on that. So I think sometimes things that can really help me are when I put something on. Again, it's kind of like redirecting your brain, because a lot of times when I'm in a bad mood or stressed out mood, it's because my mind is thinking about all these things, right? My mind is stressing me out. If it's a serious thing, then I just need to take care of it. But most of the time, right, it's like the mental game. So focusing your mind can be really good, but maybe you don't have time to take a bubble bath, right? Maybe you're not in a situation where you can go out and hang out with friends. So one thing I like to do is like, okay, I'm not in the best mood, but I need to cook dinner. I'll put on inspiring teaching, right? It's like there's a lot of like Christian podcasts or like ministers that I like listening to, and I'll listen to a really inspiring message. Or something that actually helps me personally is there's a few vloggers I follow, and I'll put on a vlog, and they could be doing travel, or they could just be decorating their house or whatever. But sometimes there's certain people I like, and it brings me a lot of peace and kind of a lot more center, and I'm like, oh yeah, I don't need to be so stressed out. Yeah. And then the other thing that goes along with that, though, that I think can help is comedy.
Oh, I actually almost did that as a point. It's huge.
It's so big. And so I'm kind of combining it because it's a similar thing. But I remember when the pandemic happened, and there was just like a lot of stuff going on with work, with our personal lives, in the world. I mean, so much going on, so much like darkness and unknowns and stuff. One show that Jeff and I happened to get into during that time, and I really feel like it was a God thing. I'm not saying it's a godly show, but I'm saying it was a good escape, and that is Impractical Jokers.
So good. I used to watch that all the time.
Oh, I love it. It's so good. It's so funny. And what happens when you laugh, it says laughter is
good, like medicine? Good, like, okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, is that right? Am I
that's
thinking
a scripture, right? Yes, it is. Laughter is good like medicine. And literally, it really feels like it almost heals things inside you when you really just let yourself laugh and enjoy yourself. And that show did that for us, because it's just literally just hilarious. Just every episode is just about watching people have difficult time, like in difficult situations, and so I cringe really hard, but then I also laugh really hard. So it's such an amazing like escape. So finding like those shows or those things that you can watch that make you laugh. Laughter is so important. So many Christians are so uptight. They can't laugh. They can't watch comedy. They can't do any of that. You need to watch something that you feel comfortable watching, but you need to have laughter in your life. You need to not be so uptight that you can't laugh and enjoy a comedy, and maybe watch a movie that's a good comedy, or a comedian that you really like, and make sure we literally, before filming this, we were watching like some other stuff, and then we put on I saw this video on YouTube, and it was like news anchor fails, but like in the summertime.
Oh, those are great.
Those are honestly so good. You need to watch those. And there was one that, how sometimes something will make you laugh so hard and you don't know why, but it just did. Like this happened to me earlier today. I literally had to redo all my eye makeup because I laughed so hard I started bawling, and I realized how much I needed it. But it was like this big, those like slide, they usually are like go-kart places, but it's like the big slide that goes like this, and they're different colors, and they go down. It's meant for children.
Oh, yeah. Is it when you scoot on?
You sit on like a potato sack or something,
yes,
right?
I know what you're talking about.
And you go down. And so this news anchor was up at the top, or, news reporter was up at the top, and he was with like 3 other grown adult men, right? These slides are meant for children. And so they're like, all right, ready, 1, 2, 3. And they start sliding down, and he's trying to still talk while he's sliding down. And at first it's like, oh, yeah, it's a little, slippery, and like we're going pretty fast. And he's like, whoop, I'm getting some air. And then, like he literally can't even talk anymore because he's getting like major air every time, and his body's like crashing into the slide.
I need to watch this after.
I'll show you after. It's so funny because it just got so much worse. Anyway, I could go on about how funny it was, but I clearly needed to laugh, and I laughed so hard at that. And so my point is, you need to laugh, okay? Don't take everything so seriously. Being so tightly wound, right? Like you'll pop. But you need to kind of like loosen yourself and be able to laugh. God has a sense of humor. And
He does.
It's so important to allow yourself that, because it will make a world of difference.
It's so true. Yeah, like I am such a comedy person. I think that's my favorite genre, rom-com or comedy. Like my favorite show is The Office, and I don't know if that's ever going to change, honestly.
I don't think it will.
Since like ninth grade, so I feel like it's probably not going to change. But yeah, I think what comedy does is kind of sometimes just put humor in situations that maybe you're dealing with, like maybe let's say work, just as an example. It's like we can feel so serious about the stuff that's going on at work, or maybe like the controversy we've had with people, and then comedy takes that and they make it funny. Like they take the version of what you might be going through and make it funny, and then it's just like I could just view stuff that happens in my life more in a lighthearted, funny way than making it so serious.
Right, exactly. That's the best comedy too, when you're like laughing because you're like, I understand. The situation perfectly, or like this person, I understand who this person is.
Yeah.
Whether you relate to them or there's people in your life that you're like, that's who they are. It's just, it's the best. And it does. It helps you not take your life and situations that could be stressful and annoying, just not take them so seriously. You know, see them as a scene in The Office, and it just really, really helps.
It's true. And I like in The Chosen, they make the character of Jesus like kind of funny, you know, like they
just kind of funny.
They give him like jokes that he says and everything, and it makes me think of the contrast between, you know, the images that you used to see of Jesus like back in the day, where it's like if you're not watching this, you can't see, but it's very like
Felicia's
sad.
face looks very scary,
sad
right now.
And serious in these portraits of Jesus. And God, again, we're made in the image of God. We like comedy because God laughs. Like God laughs. Like I feel like sometimes when I see something funny, I imagine God laughing with me. You know, you have to see him sometimes in that light too, instead of just thinking he's like, go do this, you know, do that right thing. Like, you know, sometimes
he's not uptight.
He's not uptight.
Okay, so there's a book that I really recommend. I think I've recommended it before on this podcast, but it's by John Eldridge, and it's called Beautiful Outlaw. And it's about the personality of Jesus.
Ooh, I want to read that.
And it's so good. And one of them is his sense of humor. And so he kind of takes you through the Gospels and through scriptures and shows you, okay, you've always seen the scripture this way, and maybe it's a little hard to understand. But what if you looked at it through the lens of God having a sense of humor, right? Or what about you look at it through his passion or his zeal, or, you know, his humanity? And like it takes you through the different characteristics of his personality. Because sometimes we forget Jesus has a personality.
Yeah.
He was a human.
Yeah.
Right? So he has a personality. And anyway, the one on his sense of humor, I think is just so great. And I think it would really help us in our relationship with God. Because if you don't think he has a sense of humor, how are you going to like relate to him? You know, so
that's so true.
I think that's a really good book. I recommend it. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I hope that this gave you some practical ways to kind of help boost your mood when you're just feeling like you're in a slump. It is important to kind of go after it and not let it overtake your day or your week, but just realize that we all go through it. But hopefully these tips will kind of help you in that situation when you need it. So if you enjoyed this episode, then please give it a like, and also subscribe to the podcast so that you can check all of our episodes that we have coming your way this summer.
And if you didn't know, we're also on Facebook and Instagram, so make sure to check us out on social media. Until next week, remember
to have courage
and be kind.